Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Rich Harshaw, your host as usual. And today I've got a special guest with me, Gary Cohen. He's the EVP over at CCN, Certified Contractors Network. Gary's been with me on the podcast, I think at least two or three times. I've also had his cohort Scott on a couple of times. So my audience has at least some familiarity with CCN. I've asked him to come on the podcast today for a couple reasons. Number one, want to give Level 10 Contractor Daily Podcast listeners an opportunity to understand a little bit more about CCN. I'm a big believer in the company. I've been knowing these guys for I think basically all of the 20 years that I've been involved in this industry since April of 2005. My gosh, it's gone quick. But Gary, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be with you again, Rich. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, so when I first started knowing CCN, this was back in the Richard Taylor days. My gosh, I believe he's passed away. It's been probably at least 15 or more years. Is that right?
God, he passed in 2006, so
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
been
So,
19 years, almost 19 years.
well, then I know for sure that I've been knowing CCN for at least 19 years because my first contact with your company was with him. And I remember very vividly having this conversation with him, and he was so excited about the program and what you guys were doing. And he talked back then about the three pillars, which I believe at the time were sales, marketing, and operations or finance. I'm not sure exactly how he couched it.
Administration, right,
Administration,
right.
yeah. And I remember having this conversation with him back then, and I said, okay, well, tell me about that. And he said, oh, sales, we do this and this and this. Administration, it's all these cool things. And I said, well, what about marketing? And he goes, yeah, we're not really that strong in marketing, but it is one of the three pillars. And I've watched you guys over the years since then not only lean into the first two, which we'll talk about, but also become heavily involved in the marketing part of this. And from my perspective, and I know you'll be modest about this, Gary, but from my perspective, the major shift in terms of leaning into marketing came when you came on board because that is your background.
It is my background, and I did launch our marketing course and so forth. But now we're at a point where there's plenty of people on the team who have know-how in marketing. So there's a group of us who can all talk
Yeah,
intelligently
you
about
guys went from
marketing.
having this little wimpy stool leg of marketing to now. I mean, it's very robust. So kudos to you
It,
guys
it is.
for that, and whoever brought you on for having that foresight. But here's what I want to talk about today. I really don't want to dive as much into the marketing. What I want to do is talk about not three pillars anymore like it used to be, but what do you call it now? Six, what?
We
Is it still
call
six
it the
pillars?
we yeah, we call it the six pillars of success in home improvement contracting. And in fact, we've already written an ebook with that title, Six
Okay.
Pillars of Success. So
Yeah, we got to keep all these pillars straight. Like we've got the five pillars of identity. Other people have six or seven pillars, but you guys have these six pillars for success or for home improvement. So here's what I want to do. I want to walk through all six of them, but I want to deep dive into selfishly, I want to deep dive into one of the pillars that doesn't get as much airtime on this particular podcast. Obviously, we're doing a lot of marketing stuff because it's a marketing podcast. Also, have quite a bit of sales stuff on here. Not a ton, but relatively speaking. But when you
sure.
start getting into this operations and production and managing by the numbers and stuff like that, I think you've got some real value that I want my audience to glean from your expertise. So, why don't you dive in with the six pillars?
Sure. So let me tell you what they are. So the
Okay.
six pillars are marketing, sales, sales management, production management, business operations, and KPIs, managing by the numbers. So the idea behind it, Rich, is that if you can master each of these six areas, and if you can get proven systems and processes in place in your business in all six of these areas, you are going to be successful.
So are they in this order for a particular reason, or is it just, hey, there's six and here's the order that they happen to be laid out?
Now, they're actually in there for a reason. And I know you'll agree with this. You're a marketing guy. I mean, nothing starts till you begin a marketing process because, first of all, you've got to create brand awareness. and you've got to create your value proposition and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we start with marketing and then think about the sales process. Think about the whole sales funnel, if you will. And if you
Yeah.
think about it, it starts with marketing at the top of the funnel. Then you move into the sales team, and the sales is looking to close on leads. Okay, sales management holds sales to the highest possible standard, ensuring that each sales rep on the team is, pardon the expression, singing from the same hymn sheet because they need to follow a proven process and they need to follow scripts. It shouldn't matter which sales rep is in the home at the kitchen table, the messaging should be exactly the same. So
And
the
well, and
sales
also consistent with the marketing message, right?
Exactly. So that's why sales management is an important pillar. Okay. Otherwise, you could have a situation where you have sales reps not following the same process.
Yeah,
So,
I remember back in the 2005 to 2010 era, speaking on a lot of stages like I did then, still do. But I would frequently show up and there would be a very prominent sales trainer speaking at the same conferences as me. So we crossed paths several times. And I remember one time after we'd probably spoken like three or four different conferences together, he came up to me and he goes, I don't remember exactly what I said, so I'm going to paraphrase this, Gary. It was kind of like, "Hey, I don't really like this marketing stuff you're doing." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I don't like how you're taking all of this stuff that the company does, what we would call identity at level 10 contractor, right? Who you are, how
right,
you're different, why you're better, putting it out there on the front end, on your website, in your advertisements." He goes, "You're killing the thunder, man. You're stealing my thunder of my sales guys." And I want to keep that information for the sales table. And I looked at him and I said, okay, fair enough. But let me ask you this. What percentage of deals do you guys close when you don't ever get the appointment in the first place? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, yeah, exactly. Like if you don't have the appointment. So I like your approach where it's like, hey, we start with marketing, sales, sales management, but it's all integrated. It's not like these completely separate buckets. And this is a part of the reason why I love CCN and what you guys do because we're in the marketing bucket over here at level 10. We don't
right.
talk a lot about the other buckets, even though they're there and they exist. I like how you guys really pull them all together.
And, Rich, and I know you'll agree with me. When you look at the various trainings in our industry, heavy training in marketing, heavy training in sales. But when you get to the other four pillars, there's a lot less training out there. Sales management, production, business operations, and managing by the numbers. And what people have to remember, and all the contractor listeners you have out there, they need to realize that if you want to be best in class as a home improvement contractor, you have to excel in all six. You just can't be great at sales. Because if you're great at sales, that's wonderful. But if you can't produce what you're selling and do it efficiently and effectively and deliver a world-class customer experience, where is that going to get you? So you
You
see what
know,
I'm saying?
I would say, okay, so let's go back in time. Okay, let's go back to that 2005 when I first got in the industry. When I first got in the industry, the do not call thing had just devastated a lot of companies' ability to generate leads because they were heavy, heavy telemarketing. Also, back then, canvassing was massive. And then back in those
Mhm.
days, you could just kind of throw your ad in the paper, throw it on TV, and get leads, right? And in those days, like marketing was almost an afterthought. Everything, it was like sales was the only thing that anybody cared about. It was like the Tin Man type mentality.
That is so right. And listen, even CCN, when Richard Kaler launched CCN, it started with sales. It was about sales.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and and the rest of it was added as time went on.
Yeah, and then it's like, hey, what if we actually delivered on what our salespeople are selling? Maybe that would help us, perpetuate the enterprise.
And absolutely correct.
Okay,
Absolutely
so
correct.
here's what we've established that there's six different things, but they're all vitally connected. If we
They
are
are.
if we're outstanding at marketing, but we suck at production and operations, then all we're doing is putting ourselves out of business faster. And I've witnessed that.
Oh yeah, we all have.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So sales management, I agree with you. I'm hearing more people talk about sales management now. I think the light bulb has kind of gone on dimly, at least. You
Mhm.
guys are shining it very brightly. Talk about production a little bit because I still feel like there's not a lot of production and operation training available in this industry.
Yeah, so production is obviously important. So I want you to think about this. Sales, they close a contract. Now, what has to happen is that contract gets passed from sales to production. So you need to do some things to make sure you are going to deliver a world-class experience to the customer, but also do it efficiently and effectively and maximizing your profit. So what does that mean? It means that you have to do a good job with the following. You have to have a pre-production meeting, okay, where you review everything that sales has sold to the customer, and the production manager or production leader, okay, needs to go over that to make sure that they can execute on everything sales has done.
Now,
So,
you're saying
you
on
know,
a per job slash project slash
per
customer
contract,
basis?
yes,
Okay, so what does that
every
look like in
contract.
real life? I mean, like in my mind, if it's a kitchen remodel, okay, this is a big thing with lots of moving parts, lots of, things that can go wrong. We need to all get on the same page here. Windows, on the other hand, seems fairly system, it's not as many moving parts. So, like, who's in this meeting? If I just sold $20,000 worth of Windows, who's in this meeting and what are they talking about specifically?
Well, production and sales do need to communicate. And this is, and I know you're going to relate to this. You've got a couple departments that tend to butt heads. One is sales and marketing. I know you'll agree with that because you're a marketing guy.
Well, I mean,
Um,
we all live this, even you and I are not remodelers. We run, CCN and level 10 contractor, but we have this in our own companies.
that's right. We
It's not
do.
unique.
And then you also have the same thing with sales and production. So the key is we've got to get out of the silos and we've got to be well coordinated together. It's got to be a well-oiled machine. So even if you're doing windows and doors or siding or roofing, which I would agree isn't quite as complex as design and build for
Yep.
interior remodels, uh, there's still a lot you need to make sure is correct to verify everything the sales team did. Now, so the pre-production meeting is important for that. You also need to do a good job with scheduling, which falls under production. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, if you want to deliver a world-class experience, we live in a society now, and maybe we can thank Amazon for this, of instant gratification. Okay, people want something, they want it today, tomorrow, next
Yep.
week.
Yep.
I think we've all been spoiled by Amazon. Now, that can't happen in our business, but you do not want, okay, a situation where you're not doing an effective job of scheduling and we are dinging customer satisfaction because we're stretching and putting a production of a project too far out. So your backlog, everybody knows that term in our industry. We're going to have a backlog, and that's okay. That's good, but not too long of a backlog. So, because if the backlog goes too long, customers are going to get frustrated.
So let me
So
ask you
that's
this, Gary. Everything you're saying right now, I'm kind of nodding my head, going, "Yeah, I understand." And it seems very obvious. Here's what I want to know. So I'm going to back up one and a half steps. For those who aren't aware, CCN is, make sure I characterize this correctly, a training organization, training, coaching,
networking.
networking. Okay, so if you're going to do a marketing training, that's easy to understand. Sales training, easy to understand. What about production training? What does that look like? So, how do you train a company? Hey, you need to have good scheduling. You need to have pre-production meeting. You need to not have a huge backlog. Everybody will shrug their shoulders and go, "Yeah, no duh, Gary." But how do you train on that to actually make it work?
Because we train them detailed systems and processes in every area. So let me just kind of review with you what needs to happen in production.
Okay.
Okay. Number one, Production needs to develop very efficient workflows to streamline the production and minimize any delays. That's number one. Number two, production team needs to communicate transparently and effectively with the homeowner to enhance customer satisfaction, build loyalty and trust. Number three, the production team needs to celebrate team successes to maintain morale and focus on excellence. And lastly, they need to implement quality assurance measures and document any lessons learned for continuous improvement. And
Document the
that
mess
tends,
ups.
exactly. So that actually happens as part of operations. Okay, after the job is done. After every job is done, you need to go over and review the job and identify what could we have done better? How can we prevent this from happening again? And it's all about continuous improvement.
Okay,
So
so I'm gonna
our
ask my question
production
again.
class, Rich, our
Yeah.
production class is a 3-day intensive class. It's very interactive. It's a face-to-face class. It's in person. And it's for production managers. It's not for installers. Okay, so we're not teaching installation. Remember, our membership consists of multiple product lines. We have roofers, we have kitchen and bath folks, we have deck companies, we have siding companies. So we don't get into the installation piece. This is all about production management. How do you run production so you have a very efficient, effective production operation?
Okay.
That's the
So
key.
if anybody's out there and they feel like we have room for improvement in our production, we're hitting some hiccups, we could use some expertise, you've got literally a 3-day program for that specific thing.
It's a very popular course, Rich. It's one of our
Okay.
most popular courses.
Okay. So
It's
I want to
critically
ask you to
important.
I want to ask you to dive into, well, like what are the agenda items, Gary? I don't think that's going to be appropriate for our conversation right now, just from a timing standpoint.
Yeah,
But
we probably don't have time, but
but if you've got 3 days of content on that topic, I'm just going to give you benefit of the doubt that that's very granular, and as a result, it's going to be very helpful. It's be like anything else. If you take 100 managers and sit them through that meeting, 50% of it they probably shake their head and go, "Yeah, no, duh, we do that," and the other 50% are various levels of, "Holy crap, we need to do that."
is it helpful for me to share with your audience what are, to use your words, the agenda items in that course?
I mean, if we could take a quick look at it, that would be okay.
Okay,
You want
so
to
it
share your
starts with
screen?
sales paperwork,
Do
and
you
we
have a
go
screen you
over
can
how
share?
you
We can
do
just look
that.
at it, or not so much.
No, but I can
Okay.
talk to it.
Okay. Go
So it
ahead.
starts with sales paperwork that is passed from sales to production. Then, okay, we talk about building out firewalls, to prevent any unwanted issues. So both administrative and sales firewalls and production firewalls. So that's all part of the production course. Then we talk about the importance of limbo period communications. So what does that mean? Limbo period meaning the sales close the contract, and that limbo period is from the time the contract's been closed until production starts, which could be a matter of a couple weeks. Okay, so that's important to know how to effectively communicate with the homeowner to keep them happy. Then we talk about the importance of scheduling and schedule management, job scheduling. We talk about how do you assign the best crew for particular jobs. We talk about field firewall items like your pre-inspection, your remeasures, and so forth. Then we talk about the importance of a pre-construction meeting with the homeowner, okay, prior to starting production. We also teach crew accountability and assignments. How do you hold your crew accountable to delivering a world-class experience and to do the job effectively and efficiently? That's underline the word efficient because that's where the profit is. Okay. We teach specification improvements for AWOs, additional work orders. Um, then we have to talk about production firewalls for the AWOs. Then we get into project review after the fact and TQM meetings. Total quality management is TQM. Okay. And we want to make sure that we button up anything we identified in that job we just finished so that that doesn't happen again. Okay. Then we have collections. What's the best practice in effective collections? How do you get referrals? Because usually that's the production manager who collects that last check or credit card. Okay. They're the ones who take that last payment at the end of the job and ask for referrals. Okay. Then we talk about additional work orders that might be appropriate and so forth. So it's pretty comprehensive. It's more to it than you think.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I was making notes. I think there's probably 12 to 15 items that I just wrote down. So, yeah, very, very good. Thanks for sharing that list.
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, you just literally read through the agenda of that 3-day event. Am I right?
I basically did. I read the sections of the course, the modules, if you will.
Okay, so feel free to answer this however you want,
Sure.
including pleading the fifth. Okay, where else can you learn this stuff?
Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, and we offer the most comprehensive solutions. There are other people out there who deliver a talk on
Yep.
it. But as far as a comprehensive course for production managers or project managers, to my knowledge, we're the only ones who offer such a comprehensive course
Yeah, and
on home
that's really
improvement
my point.
production.
It's like somebody might be listening to this, be like, okay, that sounds good. Okay, if you don't do this, what are you going to do? So here's what I think are your other options. School of Hard Knocks, pay the stupid tax, go try to hire somebody that has this level of experience, that's a real thing. But why not utilize this tool where you can come and just learn these best practices?
Let me tell you what I believe are the two biggest risks of not having production managers and project managers go through a comprehensive production course. The two risks you run are not delivering a world-class customer experience. And Rich, let's be clear, and I know you get this as a marketing guy. When I talk about a world-class customer experience, I'm talking world-class. I'm saying the customer is absolutely thrilled. They're not just a happy customer. They're so happy that they want to be a brand advocate.
Yep.
And I know you know what I'm talking about there.
Heck yeah.
That's what we want. We want brand advocates. We want brand evangelists because we want those referrals. And remember, again, a little marketing plug. If we keep getting repeat and referral business, we're driving down our cost per lead.
Yep. 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 Yeah, I heard a guy say
So
recently. So, I mean, this what I'm about to say is not groundbreaking information, but it just kind of drove it home to me. It's like when you first start your business, you got to be really good at marketing and you got to be really good at delivering the thing, whatever the thing is in this case, remodeling. Because if you're not, you'll have to always be amazing at marketing because after a while, you need your referrals to really start being a significant part of your business. And I always remember this one company I talked to. They're up in Chicago, a window and door company, and they're they've last I knew they were a $20 million company. They're probably much bigger now. I haven't talked to them recently. 50% repeat and referral. 50%.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So here's something interesting. A number of our CCN members, because they've mastered this process in production, are getting 50 to 60% repeat and referral business. We have
Yeah, no,
several who,
normally you see repeat and referral at that level for kind of like the old mom and pop business. They've been around for 42 years. It's now the grandson who's involved working for his older dad. they're doing 3.2 million, and they've been doing 3.2 million for like 8 years in a row. But to do it at scale is phenomenal. And it starts with what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. So the second reason why this production is so important, the first one I said was a world-class customer experience. The second one is to increase your profit because most home improvement companies are not maximizing efficiency in their production. And that's what we teach them. We teach them how to maximize efficiency, drive down their cost for producing the job.
So
If I drive down the cost of producing the job, I'm driving up my profit on each job.
double click on that for me for just a minute. Again, I don't want the 3 day course. That's for people to go actually take the course. But like I look at my business is not all that different than my customer's business. They're going to go out and deliver roofing or siding or a kitchen or something like that. In my business, we're going to deliver a website and an SEO, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of production that can go wrong. There's a lot of communication that can mess up. Um, but when I look at this increased profit and be more efficient and effective, you told me to write, I wrote this down, effective, but then underline efficient, right? One of the tools that we've used to drive that is the way that we compensate our people. And I got this from the old one of my early clients back in the 90s was an auto repair shop, and he said we pay all of our mechanics based on what's called book hours. And book hours, for those that aren't aware, is if you're working on a Ford, Ford publishes a document that says if you're changing a transmission in a Ford Bronco or whatever, I'm making these details up, it should take you 7.3 hours. And so
Mhm.
they would pay their people according to that book, 7.3 hours. We're going to pay you for 7.3 hours. If it takes you 6 hours and the quality is good, you just made extra money. Good for you. And we've been taking that and we put that into our business. Is there any kind of compensation models that make a difference in getting people to be more efficient?
Um, well, sure. I mean, one thing we talk about, actually, we talk about this in our managing by the numbers class, is Rich, in every area of your business, I strongly urge contractors to use gamification.
Okay.
Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, I think you know, but I just to make sure everybody listening knows what I'm talking about. The average person loves to be competitive. That's why sports is so popular. Think
Yeah,
about how
sure.
popular sports are. Everybody loves to be competitive. Okay, you want to create competition in every department in your company, friendly competition, you know. And so I
Friendly.
we urge contractors to gamify by creating these contests, creating. So, for instance, when we talk about production, how do we do that? Let's say you've got several production crews. Okay. Have a monthly contest on which production crews were most efficient for the month and reward them with something. Now, bragging rights is always a great reward. That's what we call an intrinsic reward. It makes people feel good because they were recognized. Okay. But give them an extrinsic reward too. Maybe it's a gift card. Doesn't even have to be a lot, but just something. And by the way, that works with sales, that works with every department in your company. But that's a way you can do it. But what I want you to really think about, what I want everybody out there to think about is how how can you get your crews to be more efficient, meaning to get the job done faster without sacrificing quality? Is there wasted time? Are there poor systems in place on the job that consume more time with handling of materials and so forth? So this is what we really get into here because that's money. I mean, that drops right to the bottom line when you can improve efficiency on a job.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I know we're spending a lot of time here on production, but
That's okay. Is this part about increasing efficiency? I mean, you went through this before the operations. One of the details was crew accountability, effective and efficient. Is this the double click on that main point?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, in this 3 day course, are there specific strategies and ideas for how to accomplish faster,
There,
how to
there are,
gamify it
there are, but I
specifically?
obviously on this podcast we don't have the time to get deep.
Well, and I
But
just want the audience to hear that and go, here's what I'm hoping they're doing. And look, people have accused me, and rightfully so, of saying, "Hey, Rich, you bring people onto this podcast, and it sounds like you're just trying to sell their thing." And the answer is yes, I am trying to sell their thing because you need their thing. Like, I don't understand how you're not using financing as just another random example. I want to sell the concept of financing because you need to use it because it's going to make you more money.
right.
This is an area that we don't really get into a lot on this podcast because it's outside of the scope typically. But I'm hoping that people are listening to all this going, holy crap, that really sounds amazing. We have some challenges in this area. And I'm double clicking on a couple things here and there because I want people to go, yeah, there's a lot of meat on this bone. I don't want to go through all the meat on all the bones. I just want them to see that the meat does exist.
So there's
And
a lot of meat. Yeah.
yeah, so let's talk about how CCN works because it's a membership. So you can't just call, Gary or CCN or whatever and go, "Hey, I heard Rich talking about this production boot camp or whatever you call it. I want to go to it." You can't just a la carte go to a thing. You have to be a member, right?
So you can come and go a la carte. You can do that. But
Okay.
obviously, you're paying an a la carte price and it's significantly higher. So if you want to really master best practices in each of the six pillars of your business, it's much more effective to just be a member because you'll save a lot of money. That's really the bottom line.
Okay. And I'm going to assume that you've got different levels of membership for different
We do,
sizes
we
and or
do,
needs of businesses.
and we do. And I'm happy, my team and I are happy to talk to any of your listeners who want to learn more about that.
What's the best way to connect with you guys to explore that?
Well, one thing they can do is, and I'll tell you, this would be helpful to them, is they can go to our website, contractors.net. Okay. It's plural, contractors.net.
Okay. Got it.
And when you go to that site, they can learn a lot more about us and what we do. And also, if you go to our homepage, contractors, and scroll to the bottom, you can get a copy of our ebook called Six Pillars of Success in Home Improvement Contracting. That will give your listeners a high level overview of the kinds of things we teach in each of these six areas. They will have actionable takeaways. So they just scroll to the bottom of our homepage, fill out the form, and they'll get a link to download that book. But they can also just reach out to me directly. And my email's easy. It's Gary, Gary, at contractors.net. They feel free to send me an email and I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay.
And Rich, we didn't even get to one of the pillars that I know we originally wanted to talk about, which was managing by the numbers. And I know we're probably limited on time, but
Well, hey,
uh,
you know what? We can always have you back again. It's a daily
exactly.
podcast. I've got some time slots available.
Yeah. So yeah, let me know. And we can actually focus on that because in managing by the numbers, CCN has created something called our virtuous cycle of success. Okay. Where we teach you how to make micro improvements in each of 8 steps through the sales funnel of each contract. And with those micro improvements, each time you go through every contract, you get macro results. So we could do a real deep dive on that on another call.
Let's
It's
do it.
that course. People love this course because they learn how to manage their business by the numbers. And I'll just say one other thing, Rich. Before I came to CCN, I think you may know this about me. I had left the home improvement industry for 11 years and became a professor of
Yeah,
business at the University
I
of
did know
Maryland.
that. Teaching
And
marketing.
I also became associate dean of the business school. And here's what I want to say to you. Business schools all over the country are 100% focused on teaching data-driven decision making. And I know that you understand that because in marketing, you've got to make data-driven decisions, but you've got to make data-driven decisions in each of the six pillars. So it's critically important that your listeners learn how to do that in each of the six pillars and make sound decisions based on data and KPIs. We teach this in Managing by the Numbers.
Okay, well let's consider that a date. We'll work out the details on the back end. But yeah, let's do that. Let's come back. I want to talk about KPIs, data-driven decisions, virtuous cycles, micro improvements. Those all are things that I'm very, very interested in. And I always love these conversations because, like I said, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, Gary's training, CCN training is for remodeling contractors, but I'm just looking at my own business going, all of this stuff applies. Not
It does.
100% layover, but it's like 92%.
And you know what's interesting, Rich? All of these best practices in the six pillars, they apply whether you're an interior remodeler or an exterior contractor. The processes are still the same. It's a little different in interior just because you have more of a design and build. Okay, but the truth is, the processes are the same. So I'm sure you've got people on your listening to your podcast who have several different product lines. It applies to everything. And it's incredible what it does for your business.
All right. Well, Gary, we'll put a bookmark in this, and then we'll reopen the book here we're not going to go 6 months. We'll do this in the next 1 to 2 months for sure. We'll come back. We'll talk
Great.
specifically about these KPIs. For now, contractors with a plural S. It's on the screen if you're watching on video. Contractors.net or email Gary at contractors.net. And look forward to having you back. Thanks so much for your time today, Gary.
It's always a pleasure, Rich. So look forward to being on the next episode we can do together.
All right. Bye bye.
Take care.